What's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and gotta be honest with you, I was really hesitant to upload this video, but you guys voted online, so here it is. This is my official thoughts slash semi-review of the newest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, simply titled Avengers Infinity War. Now, hopefully by the time I upload this video, hopefully the Infinity War train has slowed down, or perhaps the crowd's passed, so hopefully this video might go underneath the radar, because I don't have too many positive things to say. Now, I just want to give you guys a couple of warnings right now. Number one, this obviously is going to have spoilers. Number two, if you absolutely love this film, you liked it, you couldn't think of anything wrong with this film, you might want to stop the video right now, because it's not that I had problems with the film. It's just that my feelings towards the film are probably going to be significantly negative, simply because of how I feel about the whole MCU as a whole. So, with that for a warning, what did I think of Avengers Infinity War? Honestly, I thought it was okay. It was another Marvel film, which is exactly how I felt about Black Panther. I went out, I saw it, spent 2.5 hours watching it. I thought it was okay. I have no desire to ever want to watch this movie ever again. I'm sure I will remember everything that happens going into the next two films, which, if I remember correctly, there's 3 more left that I plan to watch, which is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and then Avengers 4, which is going to be my absolutely final MCU movie that I see for a very long time. And it's simply a matter of I'm officially suffering from what we like to call just MCU fatigue. This thing has just been going on for so long. I mean, it's just, there's so many of these films, and they are and they're revolving around characters that I'm not a fan of. And none of these films have been able to make me a fan of these characters. I'm a firm believer that, at least in my case, if I was never a fan of these characters when I was a kid, then it's legitimately impossible to make me a fan of these characters now. I mean, believe it or not, there was a time where I completely forgot that there was an Iron Man, a Thor, a Captain America until movies about them were announced. I think I remember a little bit of Iron Man from the Spider-Man cartoon that was on Fox Kids, and the same thing with Captain America. I think he was in a few episodes, but I was a Batman, a Superman, X-Men, and Spider-Man fan. Those were my 4 groups of people. Spider-Man is my all-time favorite solo Marvel character ever. And I got a couple of things to say about him in this film also. But here's my general feelings towards the film. I thought it was just okay, because I didn't really buy the stakes. Because when I go to these MCU films, I don't really think about the story. I go into these films from a business point of view. So anything that did not make sense business-wise, I just could not buy. This movie was surrounded with characters that I didn't really particularly care, despite the fact having been stuck with these movies for like 10 years. Like, it's been a whole decade, I still don't really care about Iron Man. I don't care about Captain America. I don't care about Thor, Black Widow, Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange. I mean, these are characters my dad grew up with. I mean, my dad was the only reason I was ever excited to know these characters, because these were the characters that he was familiar with. I was more of a DC person. I mean, outside of the X-Men, who I will always eternally love. The X-Men is my all-time favorite team, well above the Justice League and the Avengers. And Spider-Man was just my main man when it came to Marvel films. And I thought that up until a couple of releases that Spider-Man for Sony was doing okay, and I think that what they did with Homecoming was alright, and I'm definitely pumped up to go see the Venom film, but just everything in this film just wasn't all that interesting. I mean, okay, I will give you this, that Thanos was probably the most interesting antagonist that we've had for these Avengers films. I mean, he's definitely major steps above Loki, and he's definitely much more easier to follow than someone like Ultron, and his whole thing is like population control, so I can kind of understand where he's going, and you can kind of see an internal struggle in him, that, you know, he's he knows this is a bad thing to do. He wants to feel like he's doing it for the greater good. A villain that you can sympathize with is always a good thing, and I think that that was very, very well handled in this film. So that's a major positive I will say that this film does. I think that the kind of 3-section act where you had Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Spider-Man doing one thing. You had like Thor with Groot and Rocket Raccoon trying to get Thor's new weapon. And you had Captain America and Black Widow and again Wakanda. And I mean, I guess I think the film did a good job at somewhat balancing some of these acts, although I think that really the most important one was definitely the one that involved Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange and Guardians of the Galaxy, or most of them. I think that Captain America and that whole Wakanda scene, I didn't really think that was really in the film long enough. And I think the Thor and Rocket Raccoon and Groot section, I think that just took up a little bit too much time because they're literally just trying to get Thor's weapon built up. And the whole problem is that this whole film is simply a setup for a following up film that is going to reverse everything that happened. Because I'm going to tell you, the supposed deaths in this film were ridiculous. And to be honest, some of these deaths were supposed to be shocking to the audience. That I was watching, surprisingly, it was kind of quiet for most of the time. But I openly laughed. Now, this obviously is going to have spoilers, but the fact that they went out of their way to kill all these new characters completely ruined the film for me, because I knew for a fact that they're not dead. I mean, the movie makes you seem like they're dead, but no, you know they're going to be back. There's only maybe 2 characters that supposedly die in this film that not only does it make sense for them to stay dead, these were characters I never cared for, who happen to be Gamora, which they used to make the Soul Stone, and Vision. Mind you, again, these were 2 characters I didn't care about. I don't know anything about these 2 characters, so I don't care. Despite the fact that Vision popped up in Avengers 2 and Gamora was in 2 Guardians of the Galaxy films, she was never really a character I cared for. And I think that is the overarching problem I have with the MCU, is that a majority of these characters I'm just not a fan of. I can respect these characters, but I generally just don't care about them. And when you make a film that supposedly kills off my favorite Marvel character in Spider-Man, and yet I'm kind of laughing at his death scene, you know there's something wrong, because a lot of people were like, a lot of people's reaction in the theater were kind of ridiculous, because I was like, there's no way that Disney went through all this trouble to get Spider-Man part of the MCU just to kill him off, when some of these characters we already know they're going to have a follow-up movie. You know they're going to do another Spider-Man movie. You know that you know damn right they're going to do another Black Panther movie. They're going to do another Doctor Strange film. They've already set up these characters. Everybody they killed, they've already set up a following film that we know is coming. Now, had they killed off like the original team, because everyone was speculating who was going to die between Captain America and Iron Man, I think had they taken both of them out, would have been way more believable. I'm not saying you have to keep them dead, but I think the shock value would have been better. The fact that Thanos, with a single snap, wipes out the entire original team, outside of Hawkeye, which didn't show up in this film for some reason, from the first Avengers film in an instant, would have been really incredible, but they didn't do that. They killed off all the characters that you knew were coming back. The whole point of the following up film is they're going to reverse everything the first film did, and they're probably going to come up with some bullshit explanation for how they're going to take down Thanos, with probably Captain Marvel leading the charge, since that's going to be their next mega hit character because of how extremely powerful she is. She's probably going to be the one that probably does the most amount of damage towards Thanos, but that's just my guess. My overall feeling and problem with the MCU in general, and continues on with this movie, is that it just feels like there's no sense of finality, and they're already discussing how they're already playing out all the MCU films for the next decade, and I just think that this is just ridiculous. I am living in an age where this whole MCU thing started when I was 17 years old. And the fact that this is going to continue on until almost me hitting 40 years old is ridiculous. I mean, the reason why the Dark Knight trilogy sticks with me, even despite the fact that it's been years since it was over, especially the Dark Knight, since it's almost been 10 years since that came out, is that it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't like stories that never feel like they're ending, because there's no stakes. And you're surrounding around characters that I don't care about. I mean, say what you want about the Dark Knight Rises. It was definitely the weakest out of the trilogy in my bunch, but at least it had a sense of finality. And they did an incredible job also with Logan. The reason the X-Men franchise, at least for me, worked was it had a sense of finality, especially with Logan. I was saying goodbye to a character that I had gotten to know since I was 9 years old. And I just don't feel that with the MCU. This is designed to keep going and going and going and going. And now the whole big talks about Fox giving the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four going over to the MCU is ridiculous. Because there was absolutely no way you're gonna make me believe that the X-Men and the Fantastic Four had existed in this MCU this whole time, and they are showing up now. The only way I would ever consider buying this idea is if they did a hard reboot. And I have been saying this for years, but I'm telling you, when Avengers 4 comes out, that is going to be the last MCU movie I want to see for a long time. I might let 5, 6, 7 years go by, and when I decide to come back to these films, maybe, I'm willing to bet I will not have missed anything. Now, I know that this video might seem rather negative, but I don't want to hinder anyone else's experience. If you enjoy these films, if you have not gotten bored of these films, then you have a much stronger focus on this film than I ever could. I mean, I could only stick with this for so long, and then the fact that they're starting to do this with Star Wars soon, where they're going to release a film every year, it's just, the more of these films they keep releasing, the less special it feels. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still getting real pumped up with Deadpool, but Deadpool's just starting. We don't really know what's going on with X-Men Phoenix. That might be the conclusion of that own set of X-Men films, which would be okay with me. I like series where I feel like there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. But to me, the MCU just doesn't feel like it's going to ever end. And until I get a sense of real finality, I don't really have any interest in these films because there's no stakes. They're not going to do anything that goes against a business model, because you're not going to do anything that is going to cost you money. That is the whole point of the MCU. We're not making movies to continue stories. We're making movies so that we can make more money, because you have to keep this going. And so a hard reboot now or in the next 10 years would not make any sense. And it's just the fact that this storyline will continue for so long. It's demoralizing. It's draining me out. This is just it's like the only way that this is ever going to stop is if I just stop watching these films. It gets to a point where I don't care. And the fact that the other franchises aren't really doing all that well is even sadder. I mean, the DCEU might as well just crawl up in a corner and die. I mean, they've already managed to screw up their own franchise. I mean, your biggest success is Wonder Woman, which is the one character in all of comic books I hate more than anyone else. And that's your biggest hit. You've managed to make Batman irrelevant, which I didn't even know that was possible. Had you told me a decade ago that Warner Brothers would make 2 movies that make Batman completely irrelevant in his own film, I never would have believed you. That the idea just seems impossible. And I don't really care about Aquaman, and they've made me lose all hope in Superman. And the X-Men is all I have left, and it seems like that might be coming to an end. But you know, maybe the Fox deal will fall through, and they won't revert back to Disney, and maybe Fox would want to reboot it, the whole thing, and start over and do a different set of X-Men films. That would be something I'm pumped up to see. I don't really want to see the X-Men join the MCU, because the whole point is that they just want to make them get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and for me, bigger is not better. The bigger it is, the more bloated it gets, and then the more the less I care about it, because it's just so exhausting. So, you know, that's all I really want to say. I know that this video is probably going to get a tons of thumbs down, but again, if you enjoyed Avengers Infinity War, I'm glad that you did. If you've seen it like 5, 6, 7 times, that's okay. If you're pumped up for the rest of the MCU movies, that's fine. I'm going to go see Ant-Man vs. Wasp, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm going to see Captain Marvel, and then I'm going to go see Avengers 4, and then that's just going to be it for me. I just feel like I have to stop before I get to a point where I start openly hating these films. There's almost 20 of these films, and out of all 20 of them, only 3 of them I thought were so good I wanted to see a second time. But the rest of them, I've only seen once, and I've never even considered entertaining the thought of watching them again, ever. And that's sad, because we're living in a really interesting age that 30 years ago we never would have believed that comic book movies would be this big. But now it's just getting to the point where they don't feel special anymore. They just don't for me anymore. I'm just getting tired of it. So yeah, that's my honest thoughts on the whole Avengers Infinity War, as well as some side thoughts on the MCU. So tell me, what did you think of Infinity War? I know that I'm probably gonna get a bunch of thumbs down, but I'm being honest. This is just me here. I don't want my thoughts to influence any of your guys' thoughts, because if you still enjoy these films even now after a decade, I think that is absolutely incredible. And if you can keep this going for another 10 years, I think that's even more incredible. But as for me, I gotta get off this train before I start getting sick of this. And I'm almost at that point now. The only real motivation for me to enjoy these films is no longer here with me to give me a guiding light. So yeah, I gotta start making my own decisions for these films. So yeah, that is the end of my video. So again, share your thoughts with me and everyone else in the comments down below, and hope you don't take my honest thoughts too harshly, because I don't want to dislike these films. I'm just getting tired of it all. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. So I'll see you guys next time.